Hello, this is the June Writers Read. So I'm Lisa Miles, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking to Christine Tate or Chris Tate, all the way from Shetland. So I'm in Falkirk and she's in Shetland, which is far north. Yeah, how are you, Chris, today?
Fine, thank you. Well, I'm fae Shetland, but I live in Maryhill in Glasgow.
Ah, right. Okay. So she's not that far away at all. In fact, it's just a train ride. Sorry.
That's fine.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So Chris, you've been really, really busy recently. You've got three that you're going to be reading for us. You've been doing some radio plays. Where do you get all your inspiration from?
Well, for the piece that I did, there was one I got a commission, and it was to think of innovative ways to preserve oral traditions in endangered communities. So what I did is I wrote Shetland's history as a narrative poem, and I wrote about things like Vikings and the clearances and wars. And I started off with the introduction to literary skullduggery, and I called it Norsemen's Mythic Mirrors. And I took bits of folk tales, I turned them upside down and blended them together. Then I did one about a castle called House to Hallucinate. There was one about a hotel. It was the Romeo and Juliet story. Another one about a dead Viking. One about Shetland's capital, and one about the clearances. So I get a lot of inspiration for culture and history and myths and legends like the Norse creation myths. And I blend them with modern stories like magic realism, so that every day merges with dreams. People turn into mythical characters, and Celtic houses turn into castles. So I suppose I take myths and legends and turn them upside down.
That's brilliant. I mean, I love that sort of mashup, if you like, of the old and new. So you've got some traditional storytelling in there. You've got some, and then you've got sort of some new ideas coming in and blending them all together. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And Chris, so you also speak a variety. Well, so your dialect is from Shetland.
Yes.
Yeah, and do you speak Gaelic or?
Well, they don't speak Gaelic in Shetland, but Shetlandic is like a mix of Old Norse and Scots words. So, yeah. One of the groups that I'm in, I'm able to go on Zoom groups, so I reconnect with people at home, groups I was in when I lived in Shetland. And one of them is Shetland Forwards. So they work on projects to preserve and promote the dialect. And as well, I'm involved with Oor Vice. I read at their night, so that showcases other Scottish dialects, and I get the chance to read my poetry with them.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm interested by that combination of Norse and Old Scottish. Did you say?
Well, it's kind of Old Scots words and Norse. I think it's Old Norse that comes from Germanic. And in Shetland, it's still kept that place names. And a Scandinavian, even in this day and age, can look at a Shetland place name and get the accurate description of what a place means.
Okay, interesting, fascinating. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
So you very kindly are going to read for us today. You're going to read 2 poems. So can I get you to read one of those poems now? Would that be okay? And which one did you decide?
Sure. Well, this is the introduction to the one I mentioned, Literary Skullduggery, about Shetland's history, and it's called Norsemen's Mythic Mirrors. Norsemen's Mythic Mirrors, or the reversed capital, the uninvited characters and sons qua were prodigal. Crofts seized by conquerors, and pensioners were oracles, uncompromising weather and missing link animals, o' the centaurs and sailors, tunes for the bellies o' whales. They played as troubadours and gondolas full o' minstrels. A man had to surrender the headline o' chronicles. They caught the murderer, a eye punctured like a well. Traps for doomed human nature, with receipts for hell, folk made for scraps o' a butcher, worked Hansel and Gretel. A wedding was hindered at the Cayley in the hall. The time was very squandered, the bridegroom in the skull. A masked and shadowed figure, quite eerily cam to call. He took the groom to wander under covers o' a pall. The creepy wicked stranger script his claws on a candle. The man was in grave danger, wax played time o' the trundles. He owned clods as a crofter, so attempted a wrangle to free him for this tour in the weed-tangled jungle. He did offer acres, emperors clays and a'. They played rounds of poker till the clock hours shrunk so sma'. He climbed out a chamber through a chalk chimney's channel. He trudged as a rambler, sign fingers pointed for thistles. He exited minds so macabre, past King Ram's pedestals. He came back as an ancestor, trying to return to the ball. Isles and tears o' winter, a wedding speech was a canticle. A fiddle o' splinters, the stolen sheep telled the tale.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I was just noticing the way that the poem flowed, and with some rhyming, some non-rhyming, but just that sort of the ebb and the flow of the story, along with the rhyming and the non-rhyming, which is I love the combination of that.
Thank you.
Feels like feels very woven, you know, almost. You don't quite know what's coming next. You can't guess what's coming next.
Thank you. Yes, sometimes poems that don't rhyme exactly, it can feel like the reader is being drawn in more. And I got the chance to read that in Lewis with the University of the Highlands and Islands. So that was a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so the original tale for that one, what was behind the original tale for that?
There's several Shetland folk tales that I took extracts for and joined them together. One of them is a story called The Bridegroom in the Skull, and that's for Shetland's northernmost isle called Unst. And I think the meaning for that is Eagle's Nest. And it's a folk tale I've heard as well for Angela Carter, the English writer, and it's about a man and his best man, and they go sending wedding invites, and they tack a shortcut across a graveyard, and en route there's a skull lying next to a grave, so the groom picks up the skull and says, "You're invited to my wedding." Then on the night there's a loud bang on the door, and a man in a cape comes looking for the groom, and he tacks him away, and the groom is never seen again until a few years later he returns to the croft house where the wedding reception was at, and he asks about the wedding, and the lady that lives there said there's no wedding, but she did mind her granny mentioning it many years ago. And then the groom just looks in the mirror, he falls to dust and gets swept away. And then the other one is a true story called The Blind Eye o' Gibby Law, and it's about a man that had a crush on a woman, but she was engaged, and the man was jealous, so he killed the man. He was murdered, and I think it was his dog that found his body. And then all the men in the parish had to put their hands on the victim's head, and he had a blind eye. And when the murderer put his hand on his head, blood spurted for his blind eye, so the murderer got convicted.
Wow. So some quite sort of, dark gothic tales going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you've just done doing some radio plays as well. How did that come about?
Well, I was really keen to get into playwriting, but I always found it tricky. It was like a maze. And then during lockdown, the Tron Theatre was offering the chance for people to write plays, and I wrote this one. It was originally about scarecrows, and then I developed it. I was inspired by Three Men in a Tub. It was a poem inspired by a painting, a commission I did for the St Andrews Museum. And then the play was read and it was recorded, and I was able to let my family in Shetland hear it through Zoom. So it was an excellent experience. It was really good fun. And then I shared the play to my mentor at In Motion, who I'd worked with previously. Me and her worked on a monologue that I wrote for in connection with See Me Mental Health, and Karen Barkey for Scott Squad performed it, and she did a brilliant job. It can be seen on YouTube as Diablo in Blunderland. And my mentor, Lisa Nichol, was very enthusiastic about my play, had a tune built upon shenanigans, and she encouraged me to apply for funding. And so I did. And I got it for Creative Scotland, and that let me, I was able to hire actors and sound staff and photographers and many people for the Dundee, Perth and Angus area. So it gave a lot of opportunities for people in the north. And it was recorded at the Dibbletree Theatre in Carnoustie. So this past few weeks, I've been making trips north, and I've been involved in every step for them hiring of actors, the auditions, the improvisation, the recording, and it's all been really good fun. And I've got to kind of place that's really welcoming, and it's been, we had a launch, and since then I've done several newspaper and radio interviews. So one opportunity is like to another, and the next step is I'm hoping to make it into a graphic novel, hopefully an animated film, and go to schools with it because it's got a positive message about mental health.
Fabulous. That's absolutely amazing. And what a nice gift, because often as a writer, you know, you write and then you kind of get left out of the production process, but you input into all of it. You were hiring the actors, you had kind of a, you know, so it wasn't that you wrote this and then you handed it over. It was you were able to be a, you know, have a voice through all of it. So that's very rich, I think. Yeah.
Oh yes, very much so. It's been my ambition since childhood to have actors perform my work. So it's been a really magic process. I always want, when anyone works with me, I always like to make sure that they'll get paid. So that was my main intention with the funding. And then, yes, they always listened to my opinions. I focused on feedback and constructive criticism, and I was very open to being flexible. And I was very happy with each member of staff's work. They made a brilliant contribution, and their style was first class. And as well, the Shetland fiddler, I had a fiddler for Shetland, Cheyenne Davis, that's played in the Edinburgh Military Tattoo. So I got a wide variety of talents, and it all sounds lovely in the show, in the recording. And I've gotten good feedback, so I've been really lucky.
Yeah. Well, you're very talented, Chris. So it's
thank you.
You really are special. Can we go to your second poem that you're going to read for us?
Certainly, yes. This is
kind of the inspiration.
Sure, The Fiddler Yow, and it's about the clearances. The Fiddler Yow. A fiddler yow took folk amok into hell like a egg yolk. The spiralling staircase reek, atil the blistered mouth and cheek. Hit like folk into swamps, like deliveries wi' unkin stamps. Add a licorice pit bugs, like treacle rung, fae dreeping rugs. So the yow that tempted the flock, into the tunnels lick-patched socks, the Plessis Square, Princess Hawk, for gifts stay, Goldilocks. This was the dead end for the clock. Villages slocket to nae mair folk, back to just brunt rocks, and earth and ice like bridal frocks. And Little Red Riding Hood, bouquets of flowers for a wood, that sweated roses as blood, quar the axeman did intrude. So the folk lured awa, like the compass o' a cra, In alliance, we ama scored fu, dogs could ca. As if the rods were rockly cogs, Kerts yocked alang by the frogs, Fox shift backwards like some slugs, her dialect words lang lost fae lugs. The born is a lipper and jug, sticks and stones trip up in snags, poor amos trees, branch tails wag, coarsely stitched like half-mast flags. Mahogany, Murret hills, like Kishies left and witches' wills, their airs just got bundles of bills, nae candles to melt the chills. The only culture was the whales, the wind in the ravelled sails, they followed the sorrow's tales, a prison ship steered in gills. And sank in day, the mist veils, lairds ferreted as roosting nills, by button bains new filled and frail, by ribbon tatties, neeps and kill. Lightsome customs, sangs and lore, that folk did quil buckland chores, queues o' folk aye at the door, gaffs and sheiks and in a choir. Keps and head squares were costumes, generations perched in rooms, the rigs were aye ride wi a com, and pets were stray birds and caddy lambs. Nipping fingers, counted gains, the scarred lands tallies o' the strains, their stakes through hearts cast sick pain, nae anchors did return again. Merched off wi very tight reins, doon the labyrinths o' lanes, ain's paradise new plucked and plain, passages doon sewer pipes and drains. The lairds tuned in to the tears, they heard the parish's pleads and prayers, to be permitted to bide there, atil the roots and chequered squares. Quas nims are new, script on stones, played hide and seek till they were gone. The plot's nuisance is the bonds, their clumsy cloots and misfit shoon. Lairds saunter tae graves and snore, atil slammed stone slab cloisters, like a monarch's chambers, kept at arm's length o' paupers. The laird's hand foos a clatch o' gore, and so the sheep took hit a hour.
Oh my gosh, that's so moving. I felt my arm was moving because my cat was sort of purring around. But
Oh,
quite comforting because I was actually feeling really emotional as you were reading that. It was
oh, glad.
so much, there's so much in that, so much,
Yeah,
so much sadness and pain. Yeah.
thank you.
Well, Chris, it's been absolutely delightful to be on with you today. Where can people find your work? How can they order your books and things like that?
Well, the Tune Built Upon Shenanigans, that recording is available on our podcast channels, so like Amazon and Anchor and Spotify and iTunes. And I'm going to be launching the book or the play script at the Book Whisperers event on the 23rd of July. And then I have on YouTube, I've got poetry films. Some of them are filmed in Shetland. That's on YouTube. Like, for example, Gills are Dialect Raps, and a poem inspired by a painting, Three Men in a Tub. I've got 2 graphic novels on Amazon. That's Diablo, The Fantastical Adventures on Unloved Chess Piece, and Diablo and the Leprechaun Figurehead. And the one I mentioned earlier on YouTube is In Motion Theatre in Connection with See Me Mental Health. Mine is the 3rd monologue, Diablo in Blunderland. And as well, I have an advert for my spoken word stuff. That's Diablo and the Leprechaun Figurehead on YouTube too.
Okay, so people can go to YouTube and type in Chris Tate, T-A-I-T, not T-A-T-E, just to get the spelling correct. Chris Tate on YouTube. Also, she's available on Amazon. So thank you so much, Chris. That's been amazing.
Thank